about half of the next 30 minutes, we have with us, Dr. Shanaz Subani, who will be talking to us on suicide and the role of media. In a conference as this, when we have majority of them who come from your late adolescence and young adulthood, I think it is just right to say that it is the need of the hour to talk about it, especially post-pandemic. I think there's a lot of influence of social media that we see that it has become quite integral as part and parcel of our life. And keeping that in the mind and looking at the implications what it has for social workers, professional social workers looking across, I would request Dr. Shanaz to do justice to this particular theme. But before we will proceed, we will also hear the introduction of Dr. Shanaz by Dr. Shailesh Matthew, followed by the Aaron can speak for us.
Thank you, Dr. Kaushik. It's my honor to introduce our distinguished speaker, Dr. Shanaz Subani. Dr. Shanaz is a highly accomplished educator, researcher, and social worker with extensive expertise in mental health, suicide prevention, and psychosocial intervention, particularly in low and middle income countries. She is currently an assistant professor at the University of Houston Downtown and research fellow at the Center for Mental Health Research and Innovations. Dr. Shanaz holds a PhD in social work from the University of Houston and has made significant contributions to the field through her research on suicide prevention in Central Asia. She has published extensively in peer-reviewed journals and has been a Fulbright scholar working to build mental health awareness and capacity in Tajikistan. Her work focuses on closing the treatment gap for mental health services and training community-based personnel to provide evidence-based interventions. With a rich academic background spanning multiple countries including India, England, and the US, Dr. Shanaz brings a unique global perspective to her work. Her commitment to social justice, education, and community-driven solutions makes her a powerful voice in the field of mental health. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Shanaz Subani.
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. So today we are going to talk about the role of media in suicide prevention. And the reason that we are talking about the media is because in today's day and age, we cannot talk about the environment without talking about the media. The media, particularly social media, is an important part of the environment. And when we talk about sustainable health for all people, we need to critically examine the role of media in sustaining the well-being of the people that live on this planet. Okay. So for the next few minutes, I'm going to focus everybody's attention on what is the role of media in suicide prevention. Okay. So I want to thank St. Joseph University for inviting us to this important conference and for hosting myself and my students from the University of Downtown on your beautiful campus. Thank you so much. It is our honor and pleasure to be here, and we are really grateful that we have this opportunity to participate in this important conference. For today's talk is I'm going to talk a little bit about risk factors for suicide, influence of media reporting, particularly on mental health and suicide, media reporting of celebrity suicide, and the role of portrayal of suicide in fictional media on suicide and potential solutions. So, India is about 18% of the global population, but it contributes to suicide at 28%. That is just in itself alarming. So India is a global contributor to the high rates of suicide in the world. So some of the risk factors for suicide, this is according to the Center for Disease Control. The risk factors for suicide are those things that bring people closer to suicide. The protective factors for suicide are those things that protect people from suicide. Okay? So the risk factors are divided into 4 buckets. You have individual risk factors, which include a previous suicide attempt, history of depression and other mental illnesses, serious illnesses like chronic pain, criminal problems, legal problems, substance use, or violence, or sense of hopelessness, and adverse childhood experiences. Relationship factors that contribute to suicide are bullying, um, loss of a loved one, loss of relationships, divorce, breakup, uh, high conflict or violent relationships. And in India, particularly among young married women, interpersonal violence or domestic violence is a very strong risk factor for suicide. Community risk factors include lack of access to health care, suicides, a lot of suicides within the community that people live in, community violence, trauma, and discrimination. So if you notice, if you look at the suicide rate, suicide is always higher among marginalized populations that lack access to services and those that have that face a high level of discrimination in society. Stigma associated with health seeking. If everybody just sought help for their distress or mental health, wouldn't this world be a better place, right? But stigma is one of the biggest barriers to seeking help for mental illness. Also, and in the United States, we have a lot of guns. Everybody knows, United States, we have more guns than we have people, right? Having access to a lethal weapon of suicide, a way to sort of kill yourself is a very big, very strong risk factor for suicide. In India, in rural communities, I know that having pesticides in the home is a big risk factor. And the third and sometimes ignored risk factor for suicide are unsafe media portrayals of suicide. And we'll look at some examples of this in the rest of the presentation. Okay. So if this were a classroom and we were a smaller group of students, I would get everybody to take out your phone and Google suicide news and see what comes up. But we don't have the time to do it today, so let's not take out your phones today. Okay? So when you Google suicide news, you will see what I'm talking about, right? So what is the issue? Let's define the issue. The issue here that we are talking about is that media reporting of suicides is often glamorized, sensationalized. Media reports suicide very dramatically and very simplistically. So if a suicide takes place of a celebrity or a popular person, you will have media reports saying, oh, he lost a lot of money in his business and therefore he killed himself. Her husband left her and therefore she killed herself. Oh, he failed his exams and therefore he, attempted suicide. I want us to think a little bit about this, right? Suicide is a very complex human behavior. It is one of the most complex human behaviors that we have, right? The reasons for people to consider suicide are very complex. There is never just a single factor or one reason for somebody to kill themselves, right? It's not that simple. If it was that simple, we would have solved the problem by now, right? It's very complex. The reasons for why people consider suicide are very complex. right? And suicide is very complex. The reasons for why people consider suicide are very complex. So when the media says something like, oh, somebody killed themselves because of big financial loss, it's just not true to reality. That's not a fact. Because we are failing to see how complex the situation is. There are economic reasons, there are social reasons, there are cultural reasons, there are religious reasons, and there are mental health reasons for somebody to consider suicide, right? And then when media says a one-liner about so and so is dead because of so and so, it's not that simple. Okay? Oftentimes, media reporting of mental health and suicide leads to misrepresentation, misinformation about mental health and suicide and complicates the issue and gives rise to a phenomenon that we call contagion. Okay? So, responsible media reporting of suicide is an evidence-based approach to suicide prevention. If we have responsible media reporting of suicide, that is actually an evidence-based approach to prevention, to suicide prevention. There is decades of research into the association between media portrayals of suicide and rates of suicide. This has been studied for decades, and we know that media is an important part of our social environment and has a significant effect on how people construct reality, particularly the adolescent population. Right? That you think about yourself in reality, right? So media is a very significant factor in people's construction of reality, and therefore, we have to pay a lot of importance to the role of media. Okay? Media reports tend to advertise suicides. They tend to exaggerate suicide methods like drastic suicide methods like burning yourself or charcoal burning or jumping, railway and subway suicides. These methods are actually rare in real life, but from what you read in the media, you would think, oh my God, everybody's jumping in front of a train. And that is actually not the case. So there is a lot of misinformation when media tends to dramatize or exaggerate how people take their lives, right? Media reports are oftentimes not representative of official data. Like media will say things like, suicide is skyrocketing, it's an epidemic, without sticking to the facts, right? And I'm going to talk more about that. So what is suicide contagion? Suicide contagion is a process by which exposure to suicide, so either exposure to real suicide, somebody dying by suicide, or exposure to suicide through print media or through movies and television shows, influences somebody's behavior and somebody's thinking to start considering suicide, right? So media coverage of suicide has been associated with a significant increase in the rate of suicide. And the effect of contagion appears to be the greatest on the adolescent population. So how does suicide contagion happen through media? It happens through media when suicide is presented very simplistically. When the news reports are ongoing, excessive, and repetitive, and I'll give you some examples of that as well. When there is sensational coverage of some celebrity suicides, when media actually reports on the explicit method of suicide. So, for example, saying that somebody went to their backyard, they got a rope, they tied a rope around their head, they tied a rope on the fan, and they hung themselves. Like an explicit description of the suicide method. When media does that, there is a lot more contagion. Presenting suicide as a tool for accomplishing certain things. So something like honor suicide, right? Oh, she was sexually abused, she was sexually assaulted, and therefore to protect her honor, she killed herself. So when media does things like, when media reports say things like suicide is a goal to accomplish certain ends if contagion happens. Yesterday we were at NIMHANS all day and we had a very powerful lecture by Arya. I don't know how many of you know Arya, but she works at the Enterprise Suicide Prevention Center, and she was saying that in Canada there was a dowry harassment related suicide in a small community in Canada where a young woman killed herself because she was harassed for bringing less dowry. And the media, uh, covered this story repetitively. There were for 6 months, there was a repetitive and ongoing coverage of that news story. And within a year, they had a number of young women uh, who were harassed because of dowry killed themselves with the same method of suicide. So this is really a thing, you know. So focusing on glorifying somebody who died, who attempted suicide. Okay. So we know that the impact of media on suicide behavior is particularly significant when the story is presented in detail and when photographs are presented of the scene of suicide or photographs of the deceased are presented and when the word suicide appears in the headlines. And also when the person reading the news story identifies the victim, the suicide victim. That is when contagion happens the most. So if I am reading a news story about somebody who I feel is like me, there is a lot more chance of contagion to happen. Okay? The media oftentimes oversimplifies the causes, attributing the act of suicide to a single factor, such as a broken relationship or failure in examinations. And the most common factor leading to suicide, which is mental illness or distress, is oftentimes ignored. So I'll show you, so these are some, and in the interest of time, if anybody wants these studies, send me an email and I'll send you all of these studies, right? But all of these studies, the common finding in all these studies is that when media reports on, suicide in a dramatic way, in an oversimplified way, and engages in repetitive coverage of a news story involving suicide, the rate of suicide in that community is higher following the media report. Okay, one study is from Taiwan, one study is from Australia and New Zealand, one study is from the United States. All of them have the same exact findings. Okay, so let's go to the Robin Williams. Keep going. Keep going. Okay. So take a minute and look at this. Everybody knows who this is? I know that my American students will know who this is, right? Do you guys know who this is? Robin Williams was a beloved Hollywood actor. And look at how his suicide news was reported. So this is the Daily News, a prominent newspaper in the city of New York. This is the front page of the Daily News. Explicit details about how he took his own life, right? He tied a belt around his neck, he slashed his wrist, his wife slept in another room. Do we really need to know all these details? Right? Just ask yourself, right? If somebody important has died, do we need to know all these details? And in big letters, pain, right? There was a lot of criticism about this news coverage. Okay? But this is how the news was covered. repetitive. This was August 2016 when Robin Williams died. I remember this so distinctly because I was entering my PhD program at that time, wanting to study suicide, and then this celebrity suicide happens, and the real, callous nature of the media reporting. Imagine if you were a family member of this person who died by suicide. How would you feel with this kind of news coverage? Okay. This is another one, right? Anthony Bourdain, dead, cause of death, suicide. CNN headline. And then all the Indian students know him. Yes, no, maybe I'm not getting any response from you guys. Everybody knows him, right? Beloved Bollywood actor Sushant Singh Rajput, very young, 34 years old, dead in his home, right? Okay. So, the media actually went crazy after Sushant Singh's death, right? So I only read Hindi, and so I only pull up the Hindi news outlets where it says, कमरे के अंदर मेरी सुशांत की लाश. How many of you understand Hindi? Raise your hands. Okay, so we have a few. Okay. हरे रंग के कपड़े को बनाया फंदा. He tied a green colored cloth around his neck. Who needs to know this? Like, who needs to know this, right? Is it important that he tied a green cloth around his neck? So, and I followed Sushant Singh Rajput's death very carefully after 6 months after he died. Followed every news clip, every online media report. The news coverage of his death was not just irresponsible, but it was even demeaning to the person and the family of the deceased, right? And there was a huge backlash. This is a study that came out. Sushant Singh Rajput died in June 2020, and this is a study that came out in August 2020. And they looked at 200 reports between June 14th and June 20th, just 1 week after Sushant Singh Rajput's death. There were 200 online reports about his death. And this group of researchers looked at each one of the 200 reports, and they found that the quality of, can you go to the next slide? The quality of media reporting of celebrity suicides in India is very poor. More than 85% of them violated at least one World Health Organization guideline, and the increase in how to suicide was significantly higher on the internet after the death of Sushant Singh Rajput. Okay, so how should we report suicide? We know that suicide is a major public health issue. We also know that media reporting of suicide is a major public health issue. So how should suicide be reported? So these are some guidelines from the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. They come up with 10 guidelines. So the first one is language. They say don't use words like a successful attempt and unsuccessful attempt when you are describing a suicide. Inform the public without sensationalizing. Just stick to the facts. Don't reveal the location of suicide. Don't reveal the method of suicide. Don't reveal the causes of suicide. Don't present the causes of suicide as simplistic, as referring to just a single incident. Do not feature suicide studies on the front page of the news. Do not engage in repetitive coverage. Don't say suicide is an epidemic or it is skyrocketing. Inform the public where they can get help. So, when you report a suicide of a celebrity, make sure you give the suicide helpline number, or in India it would be the telemarketing number, etc. And do not interview the immediate family members of suicide at least until 2 years after the death. Report on celebrity suicides very, very carefully, highlight their struggles or mental health experiences, humanize the celebrity, when reporting on social media, like provide content warnings and do not use photographs, right? So these are some more guidelines from the World Health Organization, which are very similar to the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. I'm going to go over the tools. The media coverage should include information about where to get help from, right? And people have to recognize that media people are also people. They are human beings. They can be affected by the media reporting of suicide as well, right? Don't report on stories how people have overcome their mental illness, right? Report stories of hope and recovery and where to get help from. Okay, this is the Press Council for India. The Press Council for India is also very explicit, right? Do not publish stories about suicide prominently. Don't use language that sensationalizes. Don't describe the method that is used. Do not use photographs, video footage, social media links, etc. So there are a lot of guidelines, right? So everybody follows guidelines. What are the barriers? So India is a huge country, right? Every state is a country in India, right? We have 22 official languages in India, more than 900 regional languages. And there is print media in all of the 900 regional languages. Enforcement is almost impossible. How do you enforce this? You can have all the guidelines you want, but who is going to enforce this, right? There is a high consumption of news on TV channels where there is a repetitive coverage of suicide, right? There are commercial incentives, it is profitable. And when a news story is reported on social media, I mean, you can click a button and 2 million people have already seen it on Instagram or Facebook, right? You wait 5 minutes and 2 million people have seen the story with irresponsible coverage. It spreads like rapid fire, right? And there is very poor accountability, very poor coordination between the people who create the headlines, the people who write the stories, and the researchers themselves, and the editors of the paper, and the photographers, right? There is no coordination. So the photographer will, put a photograph that is inconsistent with the story. The headline might be inconsistent with the story because there is no coordination between people who write the headlines and people who write the stories. And there is no accountability. You can get away with murder. I mean, you can write anything and nobody is going to be accountable. Nobody is going to hold you accountable, right? There is zero consequence. Not just in India, even in the United States, you can get away with publishing a news story where somebody died reading that story, where contagion happened, right? So contagion is when, a person looks at a celebrity and says, Sushant Singh Rajput, he had all the money in the world, all the fame, all the resources, and he couldn't make it. What chance do I? Right? Somebody reading that news story dies by suicide, but the media goes unaccounted, right? Like there is zero consequence. So I want to talk a little bit about fictional suicide. So we saw the reporting of real suicides, but I want to talk about where suicides are portrayed in the media, in movies and in shows. Can you go to the next one? 13 Reasons Why. How many of you saw this show on Netflix? Okay, so some of you did, right? So 13 Reasons Why came out in March 2017, and it is about a teenager by the name of Hannah Baker, right? Hannah Baker, who dies by suicide and leaves behind a series of 13 tapes, right? There was a huge concern from the mental health community about 13 Reasons Why. The series had the potential to have a very triggering impact on vulnerable and at-risk youth. And the storyline portrayed that mental health professionals are useless. There is no there is no use in seeking help, right? Which is not true. Which is not sticking to the facts, right? So this study came out after the the show released, the first season of the show released, and this study analyzed the changes in the rate of suicide before 13 Reasons Why and after 13 Reasons Why. And what they did was very smart, actually. After 13 Reasons Why, um, the mention of the rate with the online mentions of the show. And they did it in age groups. They compared the suicide rate for 10 to 19-year-olds, 20 to 29-year-olds, and then 30 years and older. And they found that the suicide rate among males between 10 and 19-year-olds increased by 12%. And among females, it increased by 21%. This is alarming, right? 3 months after the release of 13 Reasons Why. This is like absolutely alarming. But Netflix did not take down the show. In fact, they came up with season 2. But what they did is they agreed to put content warnings, and they agreed to put the National Suicide Prevention Hotline on after every episode. Okay? So what can we do? Potential solutions. Go to the next one. Next one. So freedom of speech is enshrined in the Indian Constitution, right? Article 91A of the Indian Constitution guarantees freedom of speech. And the minute you kind of tell media what to do, it's like threatening the freedom of speech, right? So when we try, like researchers, oftentimes we try and preach to the media, right? Like, oh, this is how we should do it. This is what it does. This is irresponsible. Blah blah blah, and it is immediately taken as a threat to freedom of speech, right? It doesn't go very well when you tell professionals what to do, right? So when we tell journalists what to do and how to write news stories, it's just too late. It's too late. We need to be in school of journalism. We need to be in schools of mass communication. We need to be in schools of mass media, teaching the ethics around reporting mental health and suicide. When you tell journalists what to do after they've already become journalists, it's just too late, right? There has to be true partnership between researchers and the media community, which is lacking, not just in India, but even in the United States. We don't talk to each other. We researchers, we write papers, we research, we think we know, and the media people think they know, and nobody talks to each other, right? So what we need is true partnership. And I think that this is really, an opportunity for university campuses where students from the School of Journalism come together with students from the School of Social Work and do something jointly, right? Because we can do so much good if we join forces. But when we do work in our own silos, we tend to do a lot of damage, right? And then I think we need policy change. Okay? We have no policy around, we have a lot of guidelines, but we have no policy around reporting of suicide in the media or reporting of mental health issues in the media. So I remember that in India, long time ago, reporting of rape was truly disastrous. Anybody who's a little bit older, I am old, so I remember this, right? When the laws changed around reporting rape in India, everything changed, right? Everything changed. So maybe we need a policy change now on reporting suicides, and maybe that will, bring about change. So that's all I have, guys. Thank you so much for listening to
Right. Thank you, Dr. Shahar, for giving us few insights on media, unsafe use of media portrayal, looking at suicide. Um, Madam presented for us the context of the global perspective as well as the national perspective on suicide, issues related to suicide, and how media can be a negative influencer. Uh, some of the key takeaways that we can take from the presentation is about uh, media reporting, ethical media reporting, that is the need of the hour, and also not just going by whatever the media says. It's quite important. We need to be, and I think we need to validate what is being presented in the media. Is something that was a key takeaway for us. And also, talking about the role of social workers as professional social workers, how we need to integrate ourselves. We are a multidisciplinary and an effective approach-based discipline. So that is okay. How can we collaborate with students from the field of mass communication in preventing suicide and having ethics being followed as part of media guidelines is a key takeaway for us. She also spoke about the lack of accountability. Whatever is being presented in the media, are they held accountable? That's something that we need to look at. And a lot of statistical evidences were being presented. Madam has, highlighted on extensive reading from research articles talking about suicide contagion and the influence of suicide rate and the reporting that is done by media. Uh, Thank you very much for spending this time sensitizing us and talking about media, given this particular situation where media plays an integral part for us in our life and our livelihood. I think we need to be quite careful on the news that we pick to read. I think this session has been an eye-opener for us. So with this note, I thank Madam for being present among us, and I hand over the session to the moderators. Okay, I think we may have time for 3 to 5 questions, maybe. If there are questions,
Thank you. But when you said that when the year reporting is right, policy change about the year reporting rate, what do you mean by it?
So now you cannot report on the victim. You cannot identify the victim. You cannot say that Hannah Kawani or whoever. It has to be anonymous. You cannot report on the location. You cannot report. So there's a lot of policy change that came about on reporting of rape in India used to be like a mess. Where the victim was identified and then faced a lot of harassment. So now they cannot do that. Even if you may have heard in 2012, there was a very big gang rape case in Delhi. There is a series on Netflix, Delhi Crime, if you want to, if you want some context for this. Till today, media has not, the name of the victim and the identification of the victim cannot be reported. We still call that girl Nirbhaya. She died after the rape, but we still don't know what her actual name was. So the policy change made a huge difference in the media reporting of rapes. Maybe we need a policy change in reporting of suicides. Any other questions?
thank you very much for your insight from the contribution to your research. So I wanted to add one thing pertaining to the Karnataka state. Recently, one of our director, Kannada director, suicide. That was taken up 1 month in all we don't record what are the things they discussed through social media, WhatsApp, all these things. Their comments were not such a way the young minds they are thinking about suicide. What it happens. Thank you. And one more thing, with regard to the policy. Media, votes on the politicians. If you look at this is the problem of the information made for us. So they are the policy makers. How we are going to change? This is the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that contribution. So there is one question there.
Everything that you said, I just have a question in terms of social media. I remember as a kid, we were protected from a lot of information. So I remember the first time I heard about the suicide, it was something so. But very recently, my brother, who's about 15, his friend had committed suicide. And as crazy as that was, it's something that's become so normalized in terms of talking about it through social information that the younger generation now is getting through social media, and if prevention from information such as discrimination better, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you for that question. It's a very good question. It is true that in this day and age, we are almost bombarded by information, right? And there is something to be said on consumption of information, right? Like, there are a lot of studies about, the negative influences about the amount of time spent on social media. The more amount of time you spend on social media, yes, the more chances of risk of anxiety, depression, social isolation, all of that good stuff, right? Because we are social beings and we have not yet evolved to be on our own, right, with our devices. We need each other. We only support, like, human beings thrive. If you look at social work values, right? Social work value too is the importance of human relationships, not the relationship with social media, the importance of human relationships, right? Human to human, we human beings thrive in human to human interaction. So what to do with the bombardment of information, right? So of course, this session is not about, the quality of the consumption of social media, but I want to say something about suicide reporting on social media, right? So we talk a lot about negative influences about media, but there is such a thing as positive influences of media as well, right? So there is a phenomenon called the Werther effect. WERTHER, the Werther effect. The Werther effect is when the media influences somebody in a negative way, right? But there is a lot of research on what we call the Papageno effect. The Papageno effect is the influence of media, the positive influence of media on the consumer, on the people consuming this information. And the media, the way that the media reports a story either can have a Werther effect or the Papageno effect. So there is a lot of research done on news stories that are good news stories, that, have reported on suicide very responsibly, and provided stories of hope, of encouragement about where to seek help. So there is a lot of research on the positive influence of social media on help-seeking behavior. Okay, so it's not just that the media can only play a negative role. The media, if trained properly, if they really sort of know what to do, they can have a very powerful positive influence on help seeking, on hope, on recovery, on on inspiration about stories, how people have recovered, or how people cope with their depression, how people get help, and how people can support. So social media can have a very positive influence if used correctly, and if, you know, people developing content on social media use it responsibly. Does that make sense? I hope I answered your question. There is one more question there, and maybe this is the last question. Okay, this is the last question.
Thank you so much, ma'am. You are going to do the question is, how does media coverage affect the mental health of suicide survivors and the families of victims?
Yes. So there is some research done on families of victims, and the same thing, ma'am. It's a very important question, which is that media can have a very, negative influence on victims when the stories are sensationalized, dramatized, people are demeaned, people are dehumanized in the media portrayals of suicide. And they can have a very positive influence if if the story is respectful of the person who died, does not dramatize, humanizes it, talks about the mental health struggles of the person. So it could be both. It is a I always say media is a double-edged sword, right? It can have a good influence, it can have a bad influence. It's how we choose to use it and how we, develop the content for the media that makes all the difference in the world. Thank you so much.
Some of them having two more questions, but
Just see me at
one
lunchtime. And I
Right
will.
now, I think we'll be having a short break, but the next set of speakers are ready. We are here to present their session. So we'll break now and then we'll come back.
Please
I request all the students down and come inside quickly. Hello, dear students. May I have your attention, please? Good morning, esteemed delegates, faculty, students, and guests. We welcome you all back to the second plenary session of SPARK, an international conference focused on advancing sustainability, transitions for people and planet, the road ahead. I am Riya Sahu and from second MSW, and it's my privilege to host this session for you. I request you all to please maintain the decorum of this hall and kindly have listening ears to the speakers who have prepared and put their hard work for this session. In this session, we will delve into crucial aspects of sustainability, particularly through the lens of social work and community intervention. We'll explore community-driven models, the impact of organizational culture on well-being, and the vital importance of self-care in a rapidly changing environment. To guide us through this insightful discussion, we are honored to have with us a visionary leader and advocate for sustainable development. Please join me in welcoming Reverend Father Francis Pinto, SJ, Director of the SJU, and the co-convener of God's International Conference from the School of Social Work to the stage. Father, we request you to come to the stage, please. Can we once again have a good round of applause? Father Francis Pinto, your dedication to creating positive change is truly inspiring. We are privileged to have you moderate this session. Now, amidst us, we have inspiring personalities who have graced us with their presence today as speakers. We are honored to have you all. Let's extend a warm welcome to them as well and please join us to the stage. We invite Dr. Nagesh and Assistant Professor, Department of School of Social Work, Central Tribal University of Andhra Pradesh. Next up, we invite Dr. Rajiv S.P., Assistant Professor, School of Social Work, Rajgiri College of Social Science. And finally, let's extend a warm welcome to Dr. Sridevi A.U., Assistant Professor, Department of Social Work, International. Dear speakers and our moderator, it's an honor to have you all with us. To know more about all our speakers, I request Ms. Saira to introduce Dr. Nagesh. Good morning, everyone. It is my absolute honor and privilege to introduce to you an esteemed scholar, a dedicated social professional, and a visionary in the field of community development, Dr. Nagesh. Dr. Nagesh is currently serving as an assistant professor in the Department of Social Work at the Central University of Andhra Pradesh. With a very strong academic foundation, he holds a master's in social work and a PhD specializing in human resource and community development. With an impressive 16 years of teaching and work experience, Dr. Nagesh has made significant contributions to both intellectual sphere and social work. His research work is well documented through numerous published journal articles addressing crucial topics like corporate social responsibility, mental health, cyber loss, and sustainable development. His expertise in CSR, social responsibility, disaster management, and social work ethics has led him to conduct impactful lectures, training programs, and faculty development programs across the country. Beyond the educational sector, Dr. Nagesh has been instrumental in organizing and leading several national and international conferences on topics including tribal rights, sustainability, governance models. His research projects focus on the holistic study of tribal communities and rural development through cooperative movements. Recognizing his dedication and contribution, he has been acknowledged by various organizations and honored by esteemed dignitaries, including the former Home Minister of Karnataka. He has also been invited as a panelist and judge for numerous academic discussions, management fest, and public forums. We are truly privileged to have with us today a scholar, a mentor, and advocate for social change, Dr. Nagesh. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Dr. Nagesh.
Yeah, we have this conference talks to therefore the talks should be alive and active. Fire that kindles other fires. So this is one. BSc students and MSc students and the scholars from other present. I hope this is sufficient because, yeah, welcome you, sir. You are presenting PPTs? Yeah. Okay, just. So without killing the time of yours and mine, so let's start the presentation. I think just in a nutshell, I thank Dr. Bemjyoti Madam, the convener of this international conference for inviting me, and also I'm thankful to the judges of university and the authorities for having me here. And my topic as third said, and I'm having only 15 to 20 minutes. I'll try my level best to convey what is the topic which has been given for me, the role of social workers in marginalized communities. So please look at the next slide. I think this is the word has been given by the so-called supernatural, and we are gifted by our parents. So we are here, and of course, probably the prospective parents, you are sitting in front of me, so you should give a better society and a better globe or the better environment for the future kids. So next slide. So there are 17 SDGs which are now presented, and we have a 2030 vision how we need to achieve these 17 sustainable development goals. Okay, so among these 17, I will be stressing upon the few areas as a social worker how you can get along with either the local community and through the corporate social responsibility and the voluntary organization along with the governmental setup. So how you have role to play there. So that I will be explaining in my presentation. So, introduction as it goes, who are marginalized communities and are they part of the society or do they have the right to live in? I think there are a number of meanings and the definitions and the concepts that are there that defines the marginalization or the marginalized community. But in a nutshell, I can tell you that the group who we call it as the marginalized community or the marginalized group are excluded from the factors called economic, social, and the political. Okay, so where these people are not benefited out of the social or the economical or the political, whatever we as a people are enjoying in the society, living in the urban community. Okay, so I can tell you that as our director was mentioning is that okay, in the marginalized communities in India, the scheduled tribes and the scheduled castes. Apart from that, number of marginalized communities in this society. Okay, I think we talk about the women empowerment. They are one of the marginalized communities that we have. Okay, we talk about the LGBTQs. Okay, they are also one of the marginalized communities we have. Okay, and we have the tribal communities or the Adivasis and also people who are in the unorganized sector, who are working in the unorganized sector, are also belong to the marginalized communities. And also the people who have a low social strata are also belong to the marginalized community. So the next topic is where do we find urban, rural, and tribal? I think I was just checking out when I was crossing the road from morning when I was about to come to the auditorium. So in the cross there was probably around 75 to 80-year-old old man who was just sweeping in front of the shopping complex. Probably what would be the daily earning of that person? Any guess? Any guess? What would be the daily earning? 300. I think how many of you go to Starbucks and have your cup of coffee by paying? Go from here. We have a Gen X generation which are burger kids, sandwich kids, cocktail and mocktail kids, right? But not surviving would be the daily wages of 200, 300, and 400, where the government of India has specifically mentioned that 444 rupees is the average wage per day the man has to get or the woman has to get. But this is the status what we are having. But when it comes to the urban area, where we will see a mixture of marginalized communities, but a more number of marginalized communities can be seen from the rural area and the tribal areas. Next. So what are the issues basically that marginalized communities are facing? Of course, it looks like oh, these are very small, very silly, and very usual issues that we have. But yet the impact of these issues have made their quality of life is under.
So this is what we need to address here. So basically the central point here is we need to talk about the poverty. When we talk about the poverty alleviation programs and the poverty alleviation schemes and the poverty alleviation welfare initiatives will definitely strengthen the life of the men who belong to the marginalized communities. Along with that, the connectivity of that goes to the shelter. I think I can tell you that the people I think. I don't know, Sharmila madam was telling about 200 multi-stored apartment was built within a 2 year. Okay, there are any number of people who are lacking a shelter in India, and not only in India, even in across the world. I think if we talk about the Russia-Ukraine, there are so many refugees. Even refugees are also a part of the marginalized communities. Then, of course, the food scarcity. The food, many people you can see that. Okay, in the name of mortality, any number of people they take a single bite and they throw away the food, and throw away the food is been eaten by the people who have not had the food. So you can think that how many people are in hunger, how many people are starving, and they are trying to wait for a single day meal. In a one day, if they get a one time meal, that itself is a blessing for them. So it is one of the issues of the marginal communities because of the lack of economic and the political and the social benefits they have not got for themselves. Then next we can go with the talk about inequality. We talk about inequalities based on the caste, creed, religion, everything. Okay, and we also talk about the inequality based on the gender also. Am I correct? Yes or no? Yes. If I talk about, if I tell you people to talk about, I can get to see that any number of women who talk about women empowerment. Okay. They talk about women empowerment. But how many of us, we talk about these marginalized communities, the inequality issues, how they have been harassed, how they have been abused by the certain class of people, certain section of people in the society, where that will be the hindering factor when it comes to the issues of communities. The next point that I will talk about is the illiteracy. Of course, the people who have not got a good economic status or a good quality of life, the people will definitely be pushing them in a small work. Okay, so where India is the agri-based country, where agriculture has the prime factor and where it plays a major role, where the people who have not good background, automatically they are pushed into the agricultural practices or they put into the small labor work. Okay, so where if they would have been trained, would have been given a better education, probably the issue of the illiteracy would have not come. If you have issue of illiteracy would have not come. So there are any number of cases who have become the first generation of learners, where I come from. I represent the Central Tribal University of Andhra Pradesh, which is the second tribal university in Asia, South Asia. Okay, so where I have encountered many tribal kids who are part of our university who are the first generation learners. For the first generation learners, where you can just think of that how the literacy is being practiced by them in their community. The next point that I would tell you is that unemployment. I won't talk about your pakodi, selling pakodi or other stuff. No. How are we getting the jobs? Are we employable? Are we getting the handful of jobs, or are we getting the salary which we are expecting to live a life with a dignity, dignity? So that if we look at it in that way, there are any number of people who belong to these marginalized communities are deprived of the employment opportunities, deprived of employment opportunities. And the next we go is health. I think probably if I ask WHO definition, people would be ready to tell what is WHO, the definition on health. Correct? So what are the components that you can see in the WHO definition in the health components? Okay. Mental well-being, then? Yeah. Mind, body, and the soul, then?
No disability.
Please once again revisit the definition and get back to me. There are several components that are mentioned. It's a big disaster in the health section, right? 2020. Am I correct? Am I correct? So how many of you were so happy to be quarantined? How many of you wanted to be so isolated for a so long period? Not having any connection, only with the through the chats, and all these things. Only interconnection through the channels that we have established, but not the human connection. Okay, where that had led to, as Madam was mentioning about the mental health. Okay, there were a number of people who have committed suicide during the COVID period. Okay, because of the depression, because of the anxiety, because of the stress, because of the isolation. Okay, think of it. The people who also belong to the marginalized community have a poor health care facilities. Okay, access to these good health care facilities has become a kind of a dream for them. It is not so easy for them. If you visit the rural area, that to the remote areas or the tribal areas, they will carry the woman lady. I think very recently I had been to a MMS, Madheshwar Hill, and we did one of the research studies on Bedagampana community. This was a pregnant lady who delivered a baby in the 1 a.m. Okay, at 1 a.m. she has delivered a baby, but she had a problem with her, post-delivery. She had to be, taken to the hospital, but they had to wait till 6 o'clock in the morning, and they brought her to the main road nearly 4 to 5 kilometers through Doli. Okay, they brought her again from there to the place where they have to reach a primary health center, just a primary health center, not sophisticated hospital, where they brought to the primary health center. They gave her preliminary treatment. Again, she took from there to the 80 kilometers of district hospital. So just you visualize how pathetic the condition. Okay, the baby is born, the baby has to be with the mother, where mother is not well, and she is about the verge of dying, giving up our life. So this was the condition of the people. Go to the next one. So here, the World Bank estimates in 2021, the number of people in India living below the poverty line will increase to 80 million. Think of it, it's the half of the population. So now we are so happy, right? Our parents give money, we use our money however we want. How luxurious we want to be, we are using it. Okay? Whatever the brands we want to wear, we are wearing it. But think of it, the population, half of the population is living in the below poverty line. That is the below poverty line. Where that shows that how rigorously we are talking about the people who are deprived of the economic facilities, social facilities, and the political facilities. The next one. So I already mentioned that there are two people who are majorly identified as the marginalized communities, where the constitution of 16.6% of scheduled caste and 8.6% of the population respectively, okay, which they have been called as a marginalized communities in India. Next slide. I think probably who are practicing the community organization method would be knowing the local community. If I talk about sitting in the AC hall, I think probably the experience of this would not be matched with it. Okay, sitting under the tree and having the table and having across the people who doesn't have a knowledge of education, so-called ABCD 1 to 3 or whatever the mother tongue language and what we have our education system. Okay, so would not be having it, and they will be discussing about their issues and the problem, which is through the local participation, through the local participation. Go to the next one. So, what is the role of social worker here is? As the role of social workers, of course, we have our methods of social work, we have our values, we have our principles, we have our models, everything. Please make sure that when it comes to this marginalized section of people, when you're working with them, so a commitment is very much needed. And Rajendra sir was mentioning it when his brief note or concept note about the conference, he mentioned about the bottom approach. So even in my point also, when he was telling it, like I was just remembered, my point also is there in my presentation. Here, the issue faced by the market committee is discussing all the way from top to the bottom. Top to the bottom should be addressed by the people who represent the population. And a holistic approach is necessary to tackle the challenges faced by marginal communities, taking into account of all levels. Okay, so they are urban people. No, we have a traffic issue in here in Bangalore. Am I correct? There is a water scarcity in Bangalore. I think we are going to face it very soon. Correct? And now it is alarming that there is a weather condition is going to be very bad. It's going to hit. The summer is going to be very hard for us here in Bangalore. See, these are the alarming situations or the issues where we belong to these certain communities. Okay, so when we think about these marginalized communities, even they are also going a very, very difficult situation. So when it comes to the recognize the role of the local government in supporting a marginalized community. So this is where a social worker has to tap on the resources. Go to the next slide. So here I will say, and I suggest all of you, those who are practicing the community organization method, please make a visit to the Panchayat institutions, which is the major source and the foundation and the backbone for strengthening the local community and exclusively the people who belong to the rural community and the tribal community, where they are also a part and parcel of the marginalized communities, as we name it. Okay, and here, what do they get through that? Through the Panchayat institution, we will get the political consciousness, we will get the concept as I mentioned, women empowerment, and strengthening democratic institutions and the processes that are involved. What is the role of the individual? Being a citizen of this country, okay, so they have the sense of this when we involve them in our Panchayat Raj institution and sensitize them about the Panchayat Raj institution. And the next one is a planning and development, definitely, which is very, very important one, which helps us to have a very systematic approach to create a structural way of functioning with the marginalized communities. And the next one is giving voice to the local demands. Of course, we cannot suppress your voice. Am I correct? Can you suppress your voice? No. We cannot. Because you have your demands, you have your needs, you have your necessities to be addressed. Am I correct? Yes. Well, think of it, the people, they are poor. And you should not be neglected and you should not be heard of them. No. Where a Panchayat Raj institution for the local government, where the social workers should be the bridging gap between these people who have not heard by these representatives, their voice should be heard by these representatives. So giving a full of rights to them to hear their voices of these problems or these issues they raise. Okay, the next topic. So, and I would mention here as a power and empowerment, which are very, very, very important and the key factor in strengthening and developing and looking forward for the sustainable development of the marginalized community is the power. Okay, I'm not talking about the power, the richness that they carry as a baggage. No, the power to exercise for their existence, how they can utilize the power by giving them in the power into the hands of them, and how they solve their local problems or the local issues, and they grow for themselves along with the community. Okay, that is the concept that I'm talking about here. And the next one is when you give a power, automatically it goes into the concept called empowerment. Concept called empowerment. Okay, where empowerment is not within a night it is going to happen. No, it is a long process. It's a long process. How we are born. Very recently, India got violent, right? There was such an issue which happened. We talked about the intercourse of a family or a parent, okay? But we took 9 months. How mother would be, taking care of us to bring out us from her home. Okay, empowerment is that it takes in a different layers, different times to come up and to see the growth and how beautiful it will be. It is the process and it will be occurring in the community and also involve the active participation of the people. Go to the next slide. So I mentioned that I represent the University of Central University of Andhra Pradesh, Tribal University of Andhra Pradesh. I will be mentioning just a few points about it. So here, what you are going to work with the tribal community people. Please identify the communities who are totally being excluded. There are n number of tribes for not being included in the mainstream of the society. Okay, then understanding the dimensions and dynamics involved in the community's growth and development and accept them how they are. People, I think probably the mocking at them is now has become a kind of habit right now. Okay, increasing and making them a different way to be looked and to be seen, to be taken care. Is entirely different. You are humiliating by your behaviors and the attitudes. Okay, accept them how they are and include has been given for the scheduled tribes in the 10 states of India, okay, which are the tribal communities, belongs to the Muslim communities, communal communities, under that where the Pesa is taking care of them, is taking care of them, and now they are seeing the slower growth of the tribal community in India. Next point. So I skip it, go to the next one. So I just talked about corporate social responsibility, which is very, very important. You people all know that. The next point. Here I just mentioned individual responsibility is very, very important, and group responsibility and the community responsibility is very, very, very important. Next point, the Scheduled Companies Act of 2013 of India also mentions the 17 SDG goals which we have. Okay, so everything, the poverty alleviation, hunger, malnutrition, promotion of health, education, occupational skills, livelihood enhancement, equality of gender, women empowerment, environment sustainability, ecological balance. The next slide and protect natural heritage, art and culture, develop rural development projects, and the slum area development. Okay, so these are the five points that are also being mentioned in the Companies Act of 2013 and the Corporate Social Responsibility, where a corporate social responsibility is also joining the hands for the sustainable development of the people, sustainable development of the people. Okay, so this is how a local self-government and this is how the corporates and this is how the government representation is working towards the betterment and the development of the marginalized communities and social workers who wish to work in the community development by practicing the community organization method. I wish for them to go with extensively for the practice of understanding the Panchayat Raj institutions and including the corporate social responsibility in their practices and make a better development. So, by showing the last video, I'll be concluding my speech. Yeah. Not working. How we can use the mask to
somewhere it's working in the background. I think probably there is some technical glitch is happening. If it is not possible, it's okay. No issues. Yeah. Anyway, I thank you all once again for listening to me. I think, yeah, I did rush a lot. It was like a one day class in India. We have a speech like that. For it. And I hope I did my best to. Thank you once again, Dr. Devlati for inviting me here, and I thank the authorities of St. Joseph's University and the people who have come from the Texas US, representing your university. I thank you, all of you, and also all the enthusiastic students of St. Joseph's University for listening to me. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Nagesh. We will have the second speaker.
For introducing the second speaker, I invite Mr. Tarun Balaji to the stage.
Good afternoon, esteemed dignitaries, participants of the conference. It's my utmost privilege to introduce to you Dr. Rajiv SP, an esteemed academic and a researcher who with over 2 decades of experience in social work education. Dr. Rajiv holds a PhD in social work, specializing in psychosocial intervention aimed at empowering the families of plantation workers in Kerala. His research encompasses diverse areas such as workplace, mental health, sustainability management, CSR, corporate social responsibility, school-based intervention, and addiction interventions. Currently, Dr. Rajiv serves as an assistant professor at Rajpuri College of Social Science, where he excels in teaching, supervising research, and coordinating postgraduate placements and student clubs. His dedication extends to fostering international collaboration with prestigious institutions in Nepal, Australia, and South Africa, as well as organizing impactful conferences and skill developmental programs. In addition to his academic contributions, Dr. Rajiv has been deeply involved in social causes, volunteering during the Kerala flood and the COVID-19 pandemic. His research work, curriculum development, leadership in various academic initiatives have earned him widespread recognition in both academic field and social work communities. Now, please join me in extending a warm welcome to Dr. Ravi Vespi. So, you will be please welcome the honorable listeners.
and the university for giving me this opportunity to speak about one of the very pertinent and very important topic of the day, which is called workplace well-being and sustainable business. An adult in their life hours spend most of the time in the workplace. Unlike the past, if you take our generation or our previous generation, if your workplace is wrong, is not enough, not supportive, your personal life is gone. But for the current generation, if workplace is not good, they just leave the place. They just leave the workplace. So as a business person, you cannot run a sustainable business if you don't consider the well-being of your workplace. When I move out for training program, I used to say, example, suppose you're on a flight from Bangalore airport, we boarded on a flight. The pilot used to introduce him when the flight is on air. They introduce and so have done successfully completed so many flights. But the flight on which we boarded, the pilot says, "My dear friends, I'm flying this for the first time. I do not know where we are going to land. All of you, pray to the good God that save us." What will happen if this particular incident takes place in our life? We'll all jump out, no? We'll take our umbrella and jump out from the flight. Or suppose, just imagine your manager threatens you, your pilot threatens you. You behave like this, the way which I have instructed you. You don't have any choice. And you will also consider threatening him back. Right? So this is called the workplace. So I'm going to talk about the very simple things, but probably some of them you can relate. And only social workers in this particular field, I feel, can incorporate these things, which are things I have included in the slide in their practice. Because it is most of a multidisciplinary context. And these are the things I am going to talk about. And the one thing is the what, which I will emphasize again and again, which we will see. Now, I'll just put what are the concepts that I am going to talk about. One is the workplace well-being. Workplace well-being is no more characteristic. No more. No business firm can actually lead you with showing you carrot that is stick on the stick or tied on a stick. You cannot. It's no more donkeys working in a workplace. It's human beings with a lot of power and capacities. Now, workplace well-being, don't take this particular concept only in the way of employees. It also includes employers. And the community in which that particular workplace actually belongs to. All these are connected to each other. If you look at this particular context, Dr. Shahana has actually, she was talking about a suicide actually. There was a suicide already took place, which got a high level of media attention she was working in one of the leading financial firms in India. And that particular firm is not only the leading financial firm in India, but is globally one of the important financial firms. And there was a suicide. Just see, if you remove one of this, Say example, social component of it or emotional component of it. You cannot ensure well-being by removing one of these elements because these are intertwined too much. So well-being can be understood in a holistic way and especially for the employees. And this is by the Harvard Business School review. And now about sustainable business. If you look at the sustainable business, they talk about a couple of words which is put in the blue color, which is one is you don't impact negatively to the environment. Second one, you positively contribute to the community and society at large. A business to be called sustainable. These two things are. And maybe you have to think one step further and I have to say, business sustain only with these components of ESG. These components also get back to you as a workplace, as a company, a corporate. Now, employees prefer workplace well-being to material benefits. Now, the new generation we call servers, even Nageswar was talking about new generation people. They were sustaining in they never clearance on a particular employment if you provide only salary. No, people are not for that. So it's very important. Second one, employees who want to work for sustainable companies. This is research which I will just show you. Now, see, the well-being, workplace well-being and sustainable business cannot be seen in two directions. One goes on the left, another on the right. No. Or you cannot say one follow the other. No. Rather, I would like to present it as is complementary to each other. A sustainable business model can actually enhance your well-being, and your well-being can actually contribute to the sustainable business. When there is a damage in any of this, naturally your business goes, your personal life goes. Now, the bottom line. I'll explain the bottom line. When you do a calculation of accounts, towards the end you draw a line. In simple ways, that's called bottom line. But what comes before that is actually need to be considered when we talk about. The first word is a cutthroat environment. What is cutthroat environment? Now, if you are a boss in an organization, an employer in an organization, you can create a climate or a work culture which naturally employees compete each other to perform better. Each day the competition is just going on, going on. So you cannot live in the organization when this competition is very high. And your boss, the so-called employer, has tuned your organization in that way. That is called cutthroat environment of working. That will attract employees temporarily. And gradually, they will detract. They will not have that attention and excitement later. So they will leave the organization. And once if you want really to benefit for employees, naturally avoid those type of things. Consider the bottom line. And this is, I don't know whether you can see that. Sorry, that is put in. The first one is going to talk about healthcare expenditure. The research talks about your healthcare expenditure at a high pressure company is nearly 50% greater than the pandemic company. When you work in a high pressure company, you spend a lot of money for your healthcare. And your industry has to spend a lot of money for your employees' healthcare. Second one, workplace stress. More than 500 billion US dollars in drain in US economy. I mean, it's a US statistics. We don't have a adequate statistics in India based on workplace stress. There's a US. Again, they talk about 5 million working days growth each year in US because of employee stress. Now, again, workplace accidents. I used to say, example, suppose I'm an employer, I just buy a machinery for 500 crores. Now, I employ a person to operate the machine with 5,000 rupees per month. What will happen? Often that machine will burn out. Employee will burn out, and the machine will also have some, what you call power supply failure or issues, accidents. Machines will fail because that employee is not happy. So accidents also can trigger this particular problem. Then towards the end of the day, we say cardiovascular disease is already correlated. If you look at your work environment happens in the workplace and your cardiovascular health. If your boss heart is good, our heart is good. That's it. Now, what are essential is at right job, whether you place a person at the right job. Now, if the recruiters usually look at the psychometric assessment, what is the purpose of psychometric assessment? Not to get a best performing employee to the place, but also to follow up that I'm just actually giving him what he requires as per his secondary components. So we have to put the right person at the right job. I'm qualified MSW, what I'm just putting at the reception counter. See, all the day whenever I take a phone call, I will be desperate because to do that job. So right person, you have to put a right place. The next one is, the person must feel valued for what he has been doing. He must feel valued. Second one, he must feel secure. Any person in your organization, take it from me, he feels that tomorrow I will be fired. That person will be always searching for a new job. He wouldn't be able to contribute to your organization for sustainability. So no fear is a very important aspect. Now again, some of the statistics talks about an engaged, happy employee will give you. Otherwise, if the employee is not happy or not, there is no well-being in the workplace. There is 37% higher absenteeism. There is 49% more acceptance in the organization. 60 more defects with the turnover. High turnover is another danger also. I have created a work environment which is very conducive and sustainable. But now, just imagine 50% of my staff goes out after a year. I have to start from zero. That I have to build a new culture, work culture in my office, or my organization. So these are all correlated or connected to each other. Now, one of the important aspects that don't pay for being loyal alone, but you cannot buy loyalty by paying more salary. But they pretend to be loyal. Whatever is the work environment, they pretend to be loyal, but you cannot buy loyalty. But loyalty naturally comes when you allow the employees to be more innovative. You listen to him, he has an idea which needs to be implemented, which is to be communicated to the people around. Then the person has the highest adaptability, their willingness to share knowledge. These are all things that actually come from an employee who is very well managed, very well considered in a work environment. And all these components will lead you to a sustainable business. If that is not there, naturally you don't provide any workplace well-being aspect for our employees. So all these are some of them. This is one of the surveys. People said I am more likely to apply for a job with an organization that considers to be more socially responsible, more environmentally responsible. This is a survey conducted in UK. And they people even said, if you look at the last point, they even said, we don't mind even when our salary is less. We don't mind. But the sustainable business, if they run sustainable business, we are able to join. That 49% said I agree, socially responsible, but salary is less. No problem, we will join. The other one, environmental sustainability, 48 agree. It's fine, even if salary is wrong, the low, I will choose an organization which talks about or which stands for sustainable business. Now, these are some of the things which I'm not going to detail it. Sustainable business needs sustainable performance and growth. Or high performing teams. Who will be performing in your organization? A happy employee in simple language. And ma'am will be talking more about the mental health aspect of it. I was very particular, I don't touch in that particular because it's a very vast area which is essential also. A happy employee is mentally fit employee. If an employee, when you are putting a team, if one of the employees is not really happy, he can actually pollute all the team effort in the organization. Now, we usually talk about industry 4.0, and why can't we talk about an HR practices which is also matching with the 4.0? Very important aspect. You cannot have a traditional HR practice by giving them a stick and carrot rule we had. Now, Mac figures the X and Y. We believe that people won't work. Now, that is not going to create any result in this new era. Rather, we must also change to the industry 4.0 where we consider the employee as one of the assets. So, there are certain things which usually we talk about, mission recognition. I come to an organization to work with a lot of capacity, a lot of enthusiasm, and you must be able to, as an employer, you must be able to recognize that. And I must recognize that as an employee, I have to value the asset, vision, and objective shared by my organization. So, mutual respect, and respect for plurality, and something called the next one is called a trust. And when I said principle of plurality, there is one more thing. Certain, gender-specific requirements are there in the workplace. Gender-specific workplace, specific requirements. Say one woman taking maternity leave, that doesn't end up in losing her job. You go to your boss saying that I need to leave because 6 months leave because I'm going out for maternity. The boss tells you, sorry, just go resign. When you come back, if there is a vacancy, I can give you. It's not. So gender specific requirements. Then trust is something which is mutual. You will not trust the employer. When employer says you work, then based on that I will give you. That is, you won't trust. The trust comes mutual. So mutual trust is very essential for a sustainable business. And I would say that you access best employees, you curate. You tune them that matching your requirements. Usually now campus placements when they do, they take a lot of undergraduate students or graduates. And usually why they are taking too many people from the campus? They are fresh, like a dog. They can put it in any form they require. So you curate. But while you curate, make sure that his identity is not lost in the workplace. His intellectually is not actually bright or it is not exploited. His innovativeness, innovation capacity is not compromised when he curate. Now, engage the employee. Engage the employee. If he is in a right place, if he is in a right team, if he is in a right spirit, I include that also. You naturally engage with your system. And you can create a climate where he can actually contribute to you. Then technology we have, global competitions. Now one person who joins in Bangalore industry, he's actually competing with the international people in that level. Because we mostly now join in not the local business or not in the local companies, but in the global companies. You are connected to the global market. You are competing with the global people. Then diversification of business. Each day, each company comes up with the diversification. They are changing very fast. Now, remember, one of the underlying factors is some of the leading firms, they have already started appointing well-being heads. It's not a new thing. I don't know how many of you know that. Right from 2015, this organization, EY, Deloitte, these were the financial firms globally acknowledged or renowned. They have already appointed well-being heads. And now, if you ask me who can be a well-being head, not a businessman, not a person who is called, I don't undermine any discipline. But social workers can be the best people who can be the well-being head. Because we look at multi-dimensional, we look at holistic approach, we consider mental health, we consider community, we consider social engagements. So these people can do a lot of things in the industry in the position of a well-being head. But at a fundamental level, employees have to interact much more with their colleagues. When technology takes place, everything, don't think that your employees can sit idle in a place and work and maximum profitability can be brought in. No. They need to connect with the people. If they are not connected with the people, they will end up in depression. And you have to spend more money for that. The problems that your employee created is not only the problem that comes out of the natural rebellion, but it also comes from the internal insecurities. And what employees expect and workplace need. Now, these are some of the things, probably you can see that when you put this, when you are, usually we say, when an organization comes, they have a lot of policies coming in, a lot of vision coming in, a lot of dream comes in. That vision and dreams and policy not only related to the employees, but also related to the community around that can give confidence to the employee who are with you. Now, fine, this is, another one is managing individuals and managing individuality. We have a lot of plans to manage individuals. You set a lot of rules. And there are rules, that is what I said in the previous slide, the rules terrorism. And you can say, in a workplace, you have plenty of rules. Now, if anybody enjoys anything, that is an exception. You go to your employer gives you an exception. We have a rule stating this, but I am giving you an exception. And you live on exception. That is very dangerous side. We don't want to live in exception. Rule for everybody, the same rule. But roots also consider individuality, very important aspect. Now, if your individuality is considered, you bring all this for the business, then I know that flexibility and sustainability, there are interdependent factors and independent factors. And some of the individual factors which you need is independent factors, but whereas caring, the purpose of the business, and the order that you can form in the organization, the feeling of safety, all these are interdependent to one another with the employer and employee. Now, I'll just finish with this saying maybe, yes, I think it is the second slide, second last slide. I'll stop 1 minute or 2 minutes. Not fear. Don't teach your employee to fear everybody in the organization. If you are going to run a sustainable business, your employee must respect everything. Your vision, the employee must respect. Your rules, employee must respect, not be afraid. A scared employee in your workplace is rational. They do rational things. And a scared employee, or if they don't do any irrational things, they just withdraw from doing anything. They are scared of everything. Even touching the machine, they're scared of. So not fear, respect. Respect is mutual. Then the last one, probably what approach the industry not ROI again, it is BOI, values on return. Value on investment. Value on investment. What value I get on my investment? The value which may not be in monetary terms available right now will be available tomorrow. So this, and then we talk about a comprehensive approach or integrated approach wherein social workers can be a champion of bringing this particular approach to workplace. So hopefully, maybe you can become the well-being heads. Try to help employees. Workplace well-being. I said again, workplace well-being is not related to the employees alone. Employees are one of the stakeholders. Employers are there. Community around it is also related to sustainable business place. So these three things are very important. And the bottom line is, when the business can actually provide you well-being environment, that actually can help you with that bottom line, which is very strong economy, financially, may not, if not today, may tomorrow. Your business will persist, your business will sustain for tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your presentation. I invite Ms. Juliet to introduce Ms. Sridevi to the stage. Today, we have the privilege of hosting a distinguished expert in the field of psychiatric social work and mental health, Dr. Sridevi A. She is the Assistant Professor in the Department of Psychiatric Social Work at the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, NIMHANS, Bengaluru. Dr. Sridevi is a renowned academician, mental health professional, and researcher with a deep commitment to clinical practice, teaching, and training. In addition to her academic role, she serves as a PSW consultant at the Center for Addiction Medicine and NIMHANS, providing specialized care in addiction and mental health. She is actively engaged in teaching MPhil and PhD scholars and contributes significantly to mental health research. Her leadership extends beyond teaching, as she is also the coordinator of NIMHANS Digital Academy. Dr. Sridevi's expertise is widely recognized as she serves as an internal ethics committee member at the International Institute for Training and Research in Reproductive Health, Bengaluru, a doctoral committee member and expert reviewer for PhD scholars at NIMHANS, a visiting faculty at IIM Rohtak, Haryana, where she taught community mental health as an elective for 2 years. A prolific researcher, Dr. Sridevi is actively involved in multiple research projects and has secured funding from esteemed organizations like Indian Council for Medical Research and Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Her contributions to academia include publications in peer-reviewed journals, book chapters, and journal reviews. She has actively presented papers, chaired plenary sessions, and conducted symposiums at national and international conferences, including the third World Conference on Alcohol and Addictions in Melbourne, September 2024. Dr. Sridevi is deeply committed to mental health advocacy and awareness. She is extensively involved in training professionals across disciplines, community outreach initiatives, developing educational materials, collaborating with government organizations, media advocacy including TV and radio discussions, and creating YouTube videos for knowledge dissemination. With a vast experience in psychiatric social wealth, mental health rehabilitation, and research, Dr. Sridevi's insights will undoubtedly provide us with a deeper understanding of the session better. A warm welcome to you, ma'am.
Hello, we have Dr. Sridevi with much experience. She will present on the topic sustainability in achieving mental health, psychological predictors and barriers. Over to you.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me here. I owe this opportunity to Dr. Jyoti, and also I thank Father Francis for having us here. I think this particular session or this particular time rather is a bit of a challenge. So just you are going to have your lunch and maybe a session after this also is a challenge. So always the presenters who are at the end will face this challenge of putting your attention, your concentration and still provide the best of our knowledge here. Let me try my best. So thanks for having this particular topic. Whatever we have spoken so far or we have heard is how we have to keep our people, like for example, if it is tribal community or marginalized community or employees in the companies, to handle them in a healthy way. But here I am talking about how to keep yourself and your mental health and how to be a sustainable mental health practitioner or because of your mental practice, how you can have the sustainability goals achieved. So it cuts across all the other topics. It's about you and your mental health. When we talk about aspect of mental health, generally we need to ask ourselves, where does this mental health needs meet? Where do we meet them? It is not that after you join a work or after you are working or in the process of you gain the skills as MSW scholars or whatever that you attain your mental health. No. There are many keys that at every aspect you will have to look for it or you will have to achieve it at some point. So since the inception of the child, the concept of mental health is now coming up. When the kid is in the womb itself, the mother's mental health is perinatal mental health. So these are the aspects that are taught, that are there in research, which says that infant mental health is very important, and from then onwards it builds up. So then education is another sphere of life where the concept of mental health is often spoken. Very important to have a healthier life and healthier childhood, a healthier adolescent phase, which will enhance the mental health. So maybe if you are working in this different area, whether you are in a hospital setup or you are in a childcare institutional setup or you are in a community setup where the people whom you are meeting, people with whom you are working, I think you have to see whether this kind of support is provided to the children or when you yourself is working, whether you have got all these adequately achieved at your time period. So family, of course, family and relationships also becomes an important factor which enhances our mental health. I don't have to talk more on this because this is very well known fact. So our neighborhoods, our community, our environment becomes very important factor in enhancing our mental health. So as a mental health professionals, we need to look into our own environment, whether we are having healthy environment, safe environment, also where you are working, whether you will have to be watching out these environments are safe and adequate for enhancing the mental health. Of course, workplace is another area where we ourselves have to be aware how to have the integration of our mental health and also people around us. So there are various ways. I mean, you can add much more. You can add elderly life. You can add the lifespan across different life stages of people where this particular mental health has to be achieved. But it is with all these issues, for example, let us consider that childhood was okay, education is fine, we have had good family system, we have had environment, neighborhood, everything is healthy, and we have now come to the level of workplace environment, but still people can have mental health issues affecting them, and people also may find their people who are coming, for example, if you have clients who are coming with mental health aspects, who can have these aspects which are affecting their mental health aspects. Commonly, we consider working hard working, everything becomes an important factor for our growth and our development, our financial stability, for our um, how much can you contribute to organization? How much can you have the capacity to contribute is something you have to be always watching out. Irrespective of the time, irrespective of your food, your stress, your mental well-being, keeping everything aside if you're working, then I think it is a high time that you have to watch it. Or even if your colleagues have that tendency, I think it becomes your responsibility to warn them that it can have a we give the example in life skill education when we teach them, we give them all a balloon. So we ask them to blow the balloon, and one particular stage of stress, the balloon blasts. Then we ask them, how can you relate it to your life? So generally, the aware, commonly what they say is this, I have my own level of, because each one's balloon will blast at different times, at different response. So that is how even human beings stress level works. How much your ability to withhold the stress or burnout is something you have to keep in mind. So workaholism is something that we have to watch out. And stress, I'll be talking a little more on that, which can be a factor for mental health issue. Then burnout, when stress is part of your work culture or when stress is part of your personality, then burnout can become an outcome of stress. Um, Boundaries. Generally, we as social workers face this when people give us work, our employer gives us the work, it's difficult to say no. So it's difficult to hold on to my boundary. This is all I can do. This is not my work. Or in any culture, maybe even in HR field, in industries, the inability to share the or inability to have the boundary is something very prominent factor that we see leads to stress and mental health issues. So this can be a factor that you may have to keep in mind. There is a tendency of people pleasing. This factor actually does not, it is a negative contraindication of your personality if you have, or if your colleagues have, or an employer who has the tendency to accept people pleasing kind of approach. I think that organization also will not have a good culture, or the people doing that also cannot do beyond a point. Maybe they can get some benefits here and there, but this is not a good sign of the organization culture. Then sometimes perfectionism can be a challenge. I want to do it perfectly, but what you lose is time. What you lose is the trust of the person with whom you are working. And also sometimes perfectionism need not be there in certain point of time. So what is required by you, what is to be presented by you, something you have to be always watching out. So just this can be a stress factor. And life changes and transitions sometimes can be an issue. You have to move to different organizations, you have to work with different people, you have to change the job, or in your personal life, you have had different challenges, loss or gain. So there are many aspects these can play a role in your mental health aspect. And often we do not talk about this, especially social workers who work in medical psychiatry or community development field, which is compassion fatigue, where I work with people who are traumatized. I work with people who are affected. So I myself take stress. I myself receive the trauma which they are going through. That becomes very difficult challenge for many social workers. I think this can convert as a mental health factor. So compassion fatigue, I think we all have to be watchful, even in maybe HR industries where you are working with employee engagement programs. Maybe you are connecting too much, connecting with employees sometimes can have a burnout within yourself. So this is another factor that may have impact your self-care. So, as I said, I'll be talking a little more on this because that is the important factor that we all have to keep in mind. How much is stressful for me? Actually, stress is not bad. If you ask me, stress is not bad. Stress is not something one should not have. I think that approach is gone by. The fact is that everyone has stress and no one will get over from it. So we all have to face or we all have to experience at some point in time. Do you all have stress? Is it a good stress or a bad stress? Oh, that is how you approach it. So let me then it's ideal that I talk a little more on that. It is part of our life and part of our culture, part of our personality that we all experience this. But there can be positive and negative stresses. It is how we treat. When we take too much of negativity out of this stress, and the stress becomes a distress. So that distress becomes a mental issue. It's very important. The stress which can be considered positively, we find that, oh my God, this is the demand that I have. This is the challenge that I have. This is the adjustment I have to make. Then it wouldn't really become a stressful. So how you perceive the stress becomes a stress factor for you all. So now how will you see the stress? It's a distress or it's a demand that you have to make up. How will you treat your stress now? Maybe then come to me. But the first thing what we need to be mindful is that how much can I consider this is a demand, this is a requirement, this is the aspect which I need to adjust to. That becomes your first priority, and first you have to see, as I said, balloon can receive the pressure at till its stress point. That becomes that you have to be watchful and mindful how far is your ability to have adjustment. So, but still, as soon as assignment comes or as soon as the exam comes, oh my God, exam is stressful. No, I think you are meant to do that. You are trained to do that. You are ought to do that. So there is no escape. Assignments that is part of your professional career and skill building. So you cannot avoid them. So every time any of these kind of issues comes, you have to always analyze how much it is demanding to me, how much can I adjust. Only the point later becomes a negative point, which is distress. So when the stress is a warning sign, so you all have to be watchful of the clients that you see, or for your own self is something that what we learn from this slide. So loss of passionate work. You reach a point when I'm not interested to work anymore. That becomes one triggering point for you. Lack of enjoyment in my personal life. Whatever I used to do before, I'm not enjoying that anymore. Again, you have to relate the earlier slide that I said. Since childhood, if the person is like that, if because of the personality, because of the temperament, because of the various reasons, if the person is like that, that is different. But the particular incident or the particular transition in life has led to this particular change in the individual, that becomes the triggering factor. Then attention and concentration becomes lesser and lesser over a period of time. That can be a warning sign. Increased mistakes and errors that you do in your career, in your reports, in your personal life, in your communication, in your assignments or any aspects that is routinely that you do. And lots of objectivity. What is my existence? What am I supposed to present with? What am I supposed to contribute? So not any of these aspects, you are not able to think objectively anymore. That becomes a warning sign. Then keeping yourself isolated and emotional reactivity is not adequate to what the situation is. So some of these things can be a red flags that you have to keep in mind. Then relationship issues, which was going smoothly earlier, but it requires a special attention now, or you are unable to contribute adequately like how you used to, can be another factor. Insomnia or sleep disturbance, fatigue, the big terms called anxiety, depression. So all these things also can be part of these red flags. So, but there are certain good points. Every person who undergoes this test will have different point levels. So, person can have good well-being, or person can also have a bad well-being. Let me explain with an example. So, I do not have a diagnosis of any mental issue. I am well and I am enjoying my life. This can be one continuum of a mental health aspect. Uh, it is very, very difficult to reach this stage, but if somebody can reach this stage, I think they are in a good well-being mental continuum. So I have no diagnosis, but still I'm not coping. Still I'm not happy. So there is no whatever the big jargons that I have said. There is nothing like that, but still I'm unable to cope myself. So this can be one of the stages people undergo. I have a mental health diagnosis. I am diagnosed with anxiety, I am diagnosed with OCD, I am diagnosed with schizophrenia, I am diagnosed with PPD or whatever. I also have another segment which says that I do have mental issue, but I am coping with and I am enjoying my life. So mental health is a continuum where any person can come to any of this segment, any part of their life. But it is up to us how do we choose which segment we want to be. Without mental health issue also, I can feel I'm upset, I'm not happy, I'm sad. Or with mental problems also, I can feel that I don't have much problem, I can manage, I'm able to handle, I have mental health hygiene, that I'm trying. So any of these extent people can have. So this is all based on the research how a mental health continuum can be compartmentalized according to our personalities and our approaches. So how do we promote mental health? So when we have any of these issues, how we as responsible social workers, how we promote mental health? So that's what I last session always has this challenge. Some of the key factors that we can keep in mind is the better education performance can be one of the way we look at. It is not the ultimate thing, but it can have the better smooth way for towards achieving mental health and greater productivity and improved relationship with families and safer communities. So these are the few things that as social workers we can work towards in achieving this mental health. So one thing, important thing that we all have to keep in mind is we have to have the literacy. We have to have the education where we are standing. We have to have the ability to understand our psychological distress. We have to understand what is the knowledge. What is it about it? Why is it coming to me? And what is our knowledge and belief system? I still feel that because my teacher scolded me, I'm stressed and I'm crying and I'm upset and I don't want to go to school in college anymore. What is my knowledge and belief of this particular incident? Is it end of it? Or this is the kind of knowledge and belief that we have to know about what is happening around us. Then professional help, where is it available? When I reach a point where I am not able to handle myself, where do I go? Whom do I go to? I think we all have to map this. And attitudes and facilitating the recognition and help seeking. So this is also very important. We shouldn't shy away from the reaching out for help. Like one of the presenters was mentioning when a point reaches where people have the people do I shouldn't use the word commit suicide, Sorry to use that. But that is the point where basically because we are not seeking the help, we are not having that map of where to go when a situation of this sort occurs. So this is something as social workers ourselves we have to keep in mind. Then where is this support available is something we all have to map. So we as social workers should take active and proactive role in building our own mental health and wellness. So there are various predictors of self-care essentials. I'm sure many of your life skills trainings or such programs will have these programs, these activities. Just what you all have to keep in mind is to be aware of the surroundings, where you're working, with whom you are working, for whom you are working, to what extent this work is of that you are liking, and how far you are making an adjustment to make sure that you are not stressed out. Accept where you are and your own path all the time. Exchange information and feelings with people who reciprocate with you. Sharing with each and everyone doesn't help. You have to know where it gets reciprocated and you receive help. Then clarify your personal boundaries. As I said, what works for you, what doesn't, you should know the boundary. You should be always assertive to say that this is positive for me, this is not positive for me. I am making my adjustments here. So this is something you have to be very, very careful as social workers. Otherwise, you will be given a lot of responsibilities when you do not say no, when you don't know to say no. Then take positive actions to some change your environment. It can be done at individual level within your own family system or in your society where you're working. Create support network, which is also very important. Um, this is something for you all. Sorry. To take home. And I have one or two announcement. I take this opportunity. We are having World Social Work Day. We have one day national conference at Interntional. As School of Social Work students, you all are welcome to attend this. And we also, I work in Center for Addiction Medicine where we have this particular CMA happening. So if you are interested, you can keep in touch with me.
Students, I have two things to say. One is good news, and the next one is that I don't say. I have good news and news that is good. News that is good is it is open to you. We had the presentation of three experts, and they have prepared well and they presented well. And Dr. Nagesh, who spoke of marginalized communities, and Dr. Raju spoke of workplace well-being, and Dr. Sridevi, mental health. All of these three speakers spoke about human beings. Now, therefore, now the house is open to you. A few questions we can ask, then the panelists will answer those. You can kindly raise your hands. If you want to go for good news, please be faster. No, when we are hungry, we are tend to ask more questions. I have jotted down a few names, sir.
Sure. Sure. So the platform is right now open for the Q&A. So if you have any questions, kindly raise your hand and Ashwin will come with mic to you. This is a golden opportunity.
Dr. K. Annapurna faculty from Rajagiri College. So, a little bit about some clarity on.
Okay.
So, you have mentioned that the SC PhDs are marginalizing communities, but legally they have been defined as a socially disadvantaged groups. Is there any difference in the both of state?
Actually, it is. Please come again once again.
Marginalization and socially disadvantaged. These two
I
are
have got
same.
the same meaning, which I mentioned about
How
the
we can define
marginalization process. I just mentioned it in a different way. They have mentioned it. So the three factors which are there: the social factor, economical factor, and the political factor, and the welfare, which defines, which are not being given or indicated, or who are deprived of all these things, are named as marginalized communities. Okay. When we talk about the social disadvantaged people, so these are the terms which are totally, which we are defining only the socially disadvantaged, not the economical and the political. So you're only talking about the social strata, the social status of the person. But when it comes to the marginalized, we are talking about the three factors which totally defines about their deprivation about the social factor, economical factor, and the political factor. Where the general of India, which I mentioned about it, reference I have mentioned in the census of 2011, it's clearly mentioned that India government itself has clearly mentioned these are the major, marginalized communities. Under that, we can clearly understand that these are the highlighted marginal communities in India. But apart from that, we have a number of marginal communities, as I mentioned. Womenism has been considered as a marginalized community. LGBTQ is considered as a marginal community. And the special children, or the disabled children, are also being considered as the marginalized communities. So there are the different, communities that have been mentioned. But when it comes to the census itself, which has been published by the government of India, which has done authenticated information, so I think that can go along with the concept what you mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else who has a question?
So, question to Rajesh sir, actually,
Yes.
there is a significant difference between marginal and disadvantage. Marginal in the sense, insignificant change. Whereas with disadvantage in the sense, lack of getting things than others. This is the difference between two. One more thing, when we are talking about SPST, it is a huge population in India. Even the neglected mainstream society that everybody knows. We need what is our social work role in this significant change in their lives of the SCST communities. When we're talking about recent budget, Nirmala Sitharaman, submitted a budget report, even whatever earlier they have given certain amount of amenities for these communities, nowadays, now it is ready. How we can expect the development of these communities? One more thing, when we are talking about, we have to present a role model. For example, there are certain the developmental change. For example, FBCs, social, behavioral, communication change model. Such kind of model we can use for the seeking the development of these communities. Such a way we have to present for pertaining to these communities because it is general. Generally, we know everybody what is their status, poor or they are suffering from all the amenities, basic amenities. What is our role? Where we are now? Where is the captain figures that we need to educate the people like them through our stakeholders, students and researchers and other policymakers. And one more thing, we need to do cultural politics through the communities. Because cultural politics, nothing but we need to educate. We need to include the students, those who are educated in their communities, those who are those who are employed in their communities, those who are there in the political leaders. So such kind of people we have to gather, then only we will come to know that what is development their community perspective. This is we need to address in such a way. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So certain times the interpretation goes in different way.
the understanding goes in a different way. Okay, it is situational always. Thank you so much for making your comments on it. Thank you.
So, about the workplace well-being, I know you mentioned promoting individuality. What are some techniques or methods that you recommend or would actually promote individuality in the workplace?
So thank you for that question. I mean, it's a good question, but a tough to answer. Why? Because one thing is there are existing techniques available that is to manage individuals, like job protection. You are given maybe 1 month you work with one team and another month you are working with another. But there are certain techniques we use to analyze the individuals, like I said, psychometry. But the result of it is not actually put into practice. I'll tell you why. So if you look at the big five in the inventory for personality test, you understand me as a person who is not agreeable or openness, or I am an introvert. But individuality is, you understand that my personality trait and you consider that and you put me in a place where I can be best performed. That is not practiced here. That's what I said. You manage individuals, but individuality is not considered. Second one, a gender-based work arrangement, rearrangement. There are certain requirements for a specific gender. How far you are actually incorporating that into the policy of the organization? You create a policy which is to manage individuals, not to manage individuals. So that's what I meant to say. So there are certain techniques like this based on personality. We even sending for the training program. Which training you are sent? You are sent for a training program which you prefer that will actually help you to go up in the career. Not something which that your manager or the boss feel that we need to tap these things from this particular person. So both these must come together and meet in a particular juncture where we become successful business. Thank you.
For the mental health and burnout with social workers. How can social workers advocate for better mental health resources within their own organizations and workplaces? No, fine. I just asked because I know you talked about how we can recognize the signs of burnout and how we can, stop it to where it gets out of hand. How can we as social workers advocate for ourselves within our school programs or workplaces, so that way our mentors and our professors can help us through that burnout? I think I would recommend the first and foremost step that social work colleges should start this trend of developing these skills for the students, because tomorrow of the setting that he or she is working in, the ability to transpire the knowledge or the skill that he or he has. And when some of these things do not match, I think being asserting to tell that this is difficult for me, maintain a boundary to talk about this is the feasible work and this is not the feasible work. So these are the few individual techniques that person can uh, uh, learn or try presenting. And there are certain structural barriers which exist in our work environment. So understanding this becomes very important part for any social worker. which can be in terms of their skill set that is matching with the organization, the ability in handling the situation, and also maybe time to time introspecting their own mental health, where they're exactly to understand or achieve these goals, whether where are they standing. I think some of these barriers, if they understand, maybe they will be able to handle their whatever the challenges that are coming much better way. The other challenge that we have is advocacy as a larger thing, larger picture, that we have associations or some support system. That's not still great as yet. We are in the process of building, having people to talk for us in such situation is something I think again as government, colleges and NGOs and some of the associations should come together to talk for social workers. Right now it is only I think individual based and person based interventions that are there.
We do not have much time. The bad news is we do not have time. And the good news is that we had eminent speakers who spoke from their experience. And I know finding the right person at the right time for the right purpose. This is called human resource management. And it is not easy for us getting them to speak on these topics. On behalf of the New University School of Social Work, we are grateful to you, Dr. Nagesh, Dr. Prachi, and Dr. Devi, presenting your thoughts and the expertise on this conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Francis Pinto, and our incredible speakers for that enlightening and thought-provoking sessions. Your insights have truly illuminated the complexities and possibilities of advancing sustainability and transition, especially within the context of social work. Once again, thanking Dr. Nagesh, Dr. Rajiv, Dr. Sridevi ma'am for your amazing insights on all the aspects of social work. Can we have once again a huge round of applause for all the speakers? And for the amazing moderator, Father Francis Pinto, for leading us throughout the session. Can we have a round of applause? As Helen Keller said, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. As a token of our appreciation, I would like to invite Father Francis Pinto SJ to felicitate the esteemed speakers of today's session. Can we have a round of applause for all the Thank you, Father Francis and Prima ma'am. Please have a seat. As Margaret Mead quickly said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Now I invite Dr. Shari Tess Matthew, the Assistant Professor, School of Social Work, to felicitate Father Francis Pinto, SJU, with a token of gratitude.
I do not accept this, but I accept as a shift 3 director. So,
All right, I know you guys have been such an amazing and patient audience. I am pleased to announce you that the lunch will be served in the auditorium basement. So, first, please allow the faculty, the delegates, the paper presenters to leave the hall. Thereafter, the NSW and BSWs can leave. All the CRs are requested to take attendance of their respective classes before they leave the hall.